What if Naruto joined Akatsuki Part 3 at the Leaf Village? Knock knock. Come in. Tsunade yelled at the closed door. She was in a particularly grouchy mood that day, on the finest of days. The sun was shining, the birds twittering in their nests high above the ground. The village was bustling with life and energy, stores were open for longer, especially the ramen store, and bad news hadn't been heard for a long time. On other days this would be a marvelous occasion celebrated with sake. Today all Tsunade felt like doing was visit the graveyard and pay homage to her brother and a friend who she had lost. Kakashi came in slowly, hesitantly, as if fearing what he would see inside. His one eye still held a tinge of red as if he had been rubbing it repeatedly for a few hours. His hair was mussed, probably hadn't brushed it since he'd crawled out of bed, and he was running his hand through it repeatedly. Kakashi. I was expecting you here today. What can I do for you? Tsunade asked. She too didn't look her finest, with dark bags hanging under her eyes and hair that had been clumsily tied into pigtails, tufts of it still to pass underneath the hair bands. Milady, I am not here for the reasons you may think. Kakashi managed to push out his mouth. His words were as heavy as lead on the air, and as thick to get out. The burden he felt was obviously tremendous. No? Well, is it important? Tsunade asked, entwining her hands together in front of her mouth. She would not have Kakashi see her lips tremble. It's about the akatsuki. Oh, not today, Kakashi. Tsunade thundered, throwing herself back in her chair. Her eyes narrowed down to tiny slits, and their weight rested fully on the dismal Kakashi. Isn't today enough of a bad omen without the news of these blasted akatsuki? And that with the added protection needed for the Lord Kazekage I cannot manage all of this at once. Unfortunately. No. Tsunade was close to wailing. Her secretary had quit. After the village had been told of Naruto's death, along with the little pig. Tsunade couldn't even remember their names. Shizuke. Shinule. Something like that. Hokage. May I remind you of your duty? Yes, today is a sad day, but for the good of our village and our land you must hear this. Kakashi loudly and sternly halted Tsunade's irrational, unbalanced thinking. Tsunade was taken aback. She reeled in her seat, eyes fastened on Kakashi, taking in deep breaths through her nose and exhaling through her mouth. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she had pulled herself together enough to have considered listening to the news on the Akatsuki. An organization that had been apparently growing more and more vibrant since Naruto's death. All right. Go on. Tsunade whispered. All right. There are rumors that ninja in black cloaks with red clouds have been roaming the countryside, some have even been spotted outside the Sand Village and the Leaf Village. Their activity has increased enormously these last couple of months, these are just the latest reports. Kakashi informed Tsunade, throwing a large pile of papers on Tsunade's heavy desk. Every single one of those papers was a filed report on an Akatsuki sighting. Thank you, Kakashi. Tsunade groaned, rubbing her temple. Papers irritated her, and she fired nearly every secretary that came her way for being incompetent. If only Shizume had stuck around. Thank you, Hokage. Kakashi attempted to take his leave. He was feeling the need to visit someone for the day. However, the Hokage had other plans. You never really told me what happened back there, at the Valley of the End. The Hokage's voice was soft, delicate. It was as if she was afraid if she spoke too loud, the words would leave her. Kakashi's retreating form stopped short of the door, hand outstretched to grasp the handle. Tears were welling in Kakashi's eyes as his mind replayed the moments again and again and again. Running away with Sasuke in his arms. Meeting the medical ninjas at the halfway point and demanding that they go in search of Naruto, that the boy was near death. Only 2 had left, 4 others had stayed with him, Sasuke and Pakun. They had given him something, and he remembered feeling ill, dizzy, and then feeling the ground rush up to his face, the numbing pain that went with it. He had never spoken a word of it, not even in a report. It had been pretty clear from their arrival what had happened, and the reports of the medical ninjas had only further proved everyone's worst suspicions. Do you honestly want to know? Kakashi whispered so quietly Tsunade had to lean forwards to hear. Of course. Naruto was my friend, he may have been knuckle-headed but he had the true strength of a future Hokage. He was the light that changed people, and he died. Now, I want to know how and why. Tsunade spoke with a confidence that hadn't been heard since Naruto's death. Her eyes flashed as Kakashi drew breath to refuse her, and he suddenly knew that Tsunade would always be asking, always be demanding the answers to the question most of the village wanted answered. As well as that, the Hokage had given him an indirect demand, and he was only a Junin. I saw both there, in pools of blood. I had to take Sasuke, Orochimaru wanted him. Those were my orders. As I left Naruto he saw me. He tried to reach out to me. I left. I had to. The medics say no body was found. Kakashi began choking on every word, the horrible images and thoughts never leaving his head. What would it have been like, for Naruto to see him just walk away? What if? Was he in pain? In the end, had Naruto felt pain? And you were not strong enough to make a copy of yourself. If you had, none of you would have made it. Tsunade whispered, piecing together the last, missing puzzle. Kakashi said nothing, only opened the door and rushed outside. The door clanged shut. Tsunade sat there, the papers all over her desk, hands clasped in front of her face with hollow eyes, rings under her eyes. She sighed heavily, her mind weighed down just as Kakashi's was. Beside her she saw some sake, and quickly threw it down her throat. It was strong, and she savored the burning taste. It was time for some more. More. She screamed at the closed door of her new secretary. A young man whose name Tsunade didn't care to remember. She'd only fire him soon anyway. Sakura was walking aimlessly through the village. So far she had encountered Kiba, sitting with the fully grown Akamura beneath a low-hanging tree, just staring at nothing, and Koji who had only eaten one bag of chips. Naruto's favorite ramen store was giving away free ramen, yet no one really felt like eating any. Looking over there, the flaps waving loosely in the slight breeze, Sakura could nearly see the blonde-haired kid, sitting there slurping down ramen like there was no tomorrow. Sakura looked away, tears welling in her turquoise eyes. Tomorrow everything would be kind of back to normal, ramen would be costly and people would be walking around with a spring in their step. Where was Sasuke? He blamed himself completely for Naruto's death, always wailing about how he shouldn't have listened to Orochimaru, how he should have been stronger. How he should have realized that his real family was in Konoha. On the anniversary he was always at his worst, sometimes he even visited the Uchiha's former village, staring at everything and touching everything, but never making a sound. Up ahead was the gate. No stragglers would be here today. The pathway outside looked so lovely, so green. Large trees hanging over the pathway, giving soft shade. Emerald grass stretched its leaf towards the glistening blue sky, and little flowers popped up everywhere giving the world some color. Hey Kotetsu, hey Izumo. Sakura greeted the two playing checkers. They looked up and gave her a soft wave and the faintest of smiles. Hey Sakura, how you holding up? Kotetsu asked, his shaggy black hair having seemingly more spikes than usual. Sakura shrugged and looked out at the perfect world. Behind her was only sadness and mooching, grumbling ninjas. How she'd love to run out and away from everything, taking some time for herself. As much as can be expected I guess. Sakura tried for her trademark easy smile with closed eyes. It didn't work as well as she had hoped, but at least it stopped the two ninjas from asking any more questions. Sakura opened her eyes to look once more outside, then go in search of Sasuke, when she saw something shift, just for an instant. She thought she saw, for that moment, blonde hair and slitted blue eyes that held hatred and menace in them, and she gasped, recoiling as if she had been hit. Kotetsu and Izumo, startled into action, sprung up and snapped their heads towards the forests. But they saw nothing. "Sakura, what is it?" Izumo asked worriedly, staring at her and then the forests with wide eyes, searching for something that could have caused that reaction. Slowly, Sakura's hands found their places by her sides again, her mouth gently closing itself. "And nothing. I just thought I saw someone." Sakura whispered the last part, staring at where the figure had been. There was nothing there, no sign that someone had passed. No grass slowly rising back into position, not trees moving a little strangely. Even the birds kept their loving songs. "Yeah, it was nothing. I'm sorry to have worried you, but I should be getting back now. I need to find Sasuke. Goodbye," Sakura called, waving cheerfully. Izumo and Kotetsu looked at each other in hesitant confusion, unsure if they wanted to know what had caused that gasp. They peered once again to the forest, but they didn't see the dark shadow of a girl watching them intently, black hair flowing down her back like dark angel's wings. Sasuke glanced around the empty room. He didn't know where he was. Somewhere on the outskirts of the village probably. It was falling to ruins, rubble strewed across the floor like a giant's unwanted play blocks. The floor, Sasuke could see, used to be clean and scrubbed every day, but now it was covered in a fine layer of dust. Through the broken windows sunlight streamed in, showing the dancing particles, intricately weaving their way around each other. He didn't know why he had come to some stranger's abandoned house. Little did he know this was where Naruto had once partially lived. No one had known about it, that he had been attracted to house overgrown with vines and a fox living inside it with kids. Not even Kakashi had known that, on weeknights when Naruto hadn't been able to sleep, he'd come to this house and kept it pristine, but allowing the vines to grow along the outside. Every spring yellow and blue flowers had sprouted with petals as large as small cats. Now here he stood, looking at little cards that had been placed on the walls. One was a fox's head, staring at him with a sheepish grin. Another was a bright pink blossom, beautiful in the sunlight. The third was of a black raven with burning coal black eyes, its head cocked to one side. The last, hanging a little way away, was of a silver dog with long hair, one eye closed in peace, the other staring out at the world with bright blue eyes. They reminded him of someone, of a team, but his mind was hazy with pain and sadness, but most of all guilt. He didn't realize that these were symbols of his late team. "Sasuke." Sakura's clear voice rang through the small house. She pushed her way past the tangling vines, and saw Sasuke standing there staring at the cards. "Sakura?" Sasuke asked, his voice timid and wavering. He was now a Junin, same as Niji, Temari and Kankuro. Sakura, also, was a Junin. Soon the others would all be going for Junin as well, as soon as these stupid Chunin exams were over. "Yeah, it's me." Sakura smiled her wavering smile again, hands clasped in front of her. Her eyes sought Sasuke, sought the old fire and ladies' man that he had once been. But instead found only dark eyes with tears threatening to spill. "Oh Sasuke. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have left you today, I'm so sorry. But everyone's gathering in the hall for the memorial," Sakura told Sasuke. Every year, on the anniversary, Konohakagure held a memorial where friends of Naruto's, and those that simply missed him, gathered in the hall and heard speeches and saw photos of Naruto. This year Gaara and Kiba were meant to be saying something. Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi were always seated in the first row. Tissues were provided. I don't think I can go, Sakura. I mean, it's Naruto, I know. But I'm the reason he's dead. Sasuke groaned, holding his head in his hands. No. No, it's not. No one blames you, we all blame Orochimaru. That little snake. Why, if he hadn't set his sights on you and forced you into doing what you did, manipulated you with sweet talk, nothing would have happened. Now come on. Don't talk nonsense, it's Naruto's memorial. We were a team, we have to go. Sakura spoke with such confidence and heat it actually startled Sasuke a little. He hadn't heard Sakura speak like that since 3 years ago. I was weak, Sakura. It's all because of me. If I had been strong, Orochimaru wouldn't have gotten his claws in me, and I wouldn't have fallen for his stupid parlor tricks. Sasuke fired back after he had regained his breath and mind. Orochimaru is a skilled ninja. He's one of the 3 legends or whatever they're called. Not even Kakashi could beat him, how do you expect to? Sakura cried out. Their voices had reached the level of yelling. I didn't need to beat him. Just be strong enough to not be subdued and hypnotized. Sasuke screamed, hands balling into fists beside him. And you two need to shut up. The memorial for Naruto is beginning and you two aren't there, his teammates. Pull it together. Kakashi yelled from the window just as Sakura opened her mouth. Reply. The two swung their heads around in shock, and saw their mentor and teacher parting the vines with his head, pollen coating his silvery fine hair. The two burst out into fits of giggles, staring at their mentor as he looked at them, eyes half-lidded in his desperation to sneeze. Eyes no fu why Gus. Kakashi groaned, rubbing his nose so harshly the pollen dropped off onto his shoulders. He gave a gigantic sneeze and sighed in relief. Oh, it's not, I'm sorry, Kakashi. It's easy for those who haven't got hay fever to laugh at those who do, Sakura said amidst her giggles. Sasuke still hadn't stopped and begun angrily wiping his eyes, causing them to grow red. Kakashi smiled lazily at his team, glad that they were happy and laughing on this day. Then he saw the fox, flower, raven, and dog and sighed. Do you realize where we might be standing? Kakashi asked everyone. They stopped their giggles with little coughs and gasps for breath, Sasuke standing up to his full height once more and smoothing back his slick black hair. He was wearing the same clothing he would have worn if he had walked with Orochimaru, without the purple bow tie on his back. A katana hung loosely on his hip. In an abandoned house? Sakura questioned, her previous rage and anger having been dissipated by the laughter. Look at the pictures. Everyone turned to look at them. Sakura instantly knew what they were, but Sasuke needed a little more explaining. One fox, Naruto had the fox inside of him, one cherry blossom, one raven with black eyes and one silver dog. I knew Naruto had a house on the outskirts of town, I just didn't know where. He kept it hidden from everyone. Kakashi explained. It was suddenly silent, quieter than before Sakura had arrived. The birds had stopped their songs, the breeze had stopped shifting fallen leaves and the bees had finished gathering the pollen. We should turn it around, Sakura suggested. Everyone looked to Sasuke. They didn't know why, but it felt right that he should do it. Perhaps to still his guilt, perhaps as an apology to Naruto, but whatever the reason, Sasuke agreed with them. He slowly reached a shaking hand forward, hesitated for an instant to calm his nerves, and lifted the little card. Gently, with as much love and care as he wished he could have shown Naruto, he turned it around so the fox faced the wall. Until the afterlife, where I hope you can forgive me, Sasuke whispered, a single tear slipping out of one eye. He believed he had cried too much in the past 3 years, yet he sometimes couldn't stop himself. It's time to go. "We're late, and Gaara and Kiba won't begin before you're there." Kakashi told them, and together they walked through the town, casting glances back at the abandoned house as they went. No one noticed the hand that reached out from the vines and turned the fox around, or the menacing blue eye with the words "I'll never forgive you" hissed alongside it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please consider